Hey. Yeah. Hello. Whatever. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Boydlee Pollentine. Everyone calls me Boyd because that's a mouthful even for an Englishman to say. I'm here today to give you a brief overview about Titanium Mobile from Appcelerator. Has anyone here used it before? Yeah. Anyone here developed for mobile at all? A couple of people, not many? Okay, so basically I wrote the cookbook, the book for Titanium that's available at the moment. I have a small digital agency in London. I do a lot of speaking and workshops for Appcelerator on Titanium. So in a nutshell, what it is Titanium allows you to write native mobile apps using JavaScript. Now, the point to make is it doesn't go and put an application into a web view like something like PhoneGap does. What it actually does is allows you to write JavaScript that's interpreted to a native application. And it's very popular. I mean, it and PhoneGap are the two most popular cross-platform solutions that are available today. There's currently 90 million devices that have installed Titanium apps at some point. And inclusive in those is there's 380,000 mobile developers that have used the product, and there's about 50,000 plus applications, both in the Google Play and the the iTunes App Store at the moment. So why go native with Titanium? A couple of reasons. You're not limited to specific platforms. So writing Objective-C, obviously, you're limited to iPad, iPhone, Java, Android. You can target both of those with Titanium. You can also target the mobile web. It's in JavaScript, so you don't have to go learning separate languages. You can reduce the time spent getting up to speed, getting straight into it, and support the one code base. So, there's less effort there. There's less duplication of code. There's less effort required. A couple of other reasons. Native apps are inherently faster than mobile web apps. If you were to go and take a PhoneGap app, for example, not to pick on PhoneGap, but if you were to go and take that to a user, for the most part, they would be able to tell that that application wasn't native. The look and the feel and the speed of it, in general, is slower than a native application. That's not to say necessarily that with Titanium you can't do some mobile web or some hybrid stuff. That's actually available to you if you want it. I don't know if anyone's sort of been paying attention recently, but Apple started rejecting a lot of apps that it views as being, mobile websites that have just been wrapped in some sort of container and put onto the App Store. So, Titanium is one way to make sure that you're building a native application that basically follows all of Apple's guidelines and isn't going to be rejected. Currently, it supports iPads, iPhones, including all the other iOS devices, iPods and whatever else, Android phones and tablets, and the mobile web. Android supported from version 2.2 onwards, so anything prior to that, Titanium won't work with. And from Q1 next year, They'll also be supporting BlackBerry 10 and Windows 8, Windows RT. How it works, it's important to note that Titanium's not a framework, it's a platform. You write JavaScript code, that JavaScript code talks to native proxy objects in either iOS, Objective-C, in Java for Android, or if you want your own modules that are written in native code that can expose those proxy objects to the JavaScript API. There's a bridge. So the Titanium platform itself provides a bridge that basically interprets your JavaScript code and interprets that directly to its native counterpart. So, I mean, if you were to look at it, it's 99% performant compared to a native application. There's that little bit of overhead, but it's minuscule compared to going and putting a web app, into a web browser. And then that compiles down to native code on Android and iOS. As I said, it's a platform, not a framework, so you're free to use MVC, MVVM, any framework that you like, really. You can write straight JavaScript code, put it straight in there, it works. You can develop much faster than native code alone. So building your apps and technologies you already know, JavaScript. Titanium Studio is Appcelerator's development product. It's based on Eclipse, and that allows you to basically manage the entire process of building an app from end to end, from creating it from a template or creating it from scratch, to testing it on the simulator, to packaging and releasing it up to the iTunes or Google Play stores. Another benefit, maintaining a single code base. So code once and adapt everywhere. No one's really saying that Titanium can code once, it will run everywhere perfectly. It's not like that. Platforms are different. So an Android phone and an iPhone, they're not the same thing. There's menu buttons, there's back buttons in Android. They're just not completely similar. So what allows you to do code once, adapt everywhere, and specifically target those sort of individual platform items that maybe you wouldn't be able to target with another framework. And if the platform still doesn't do what you need, then you can always write native modules. If you've got the skills, you can write a native module in Objective-C, you can write a native module in Java, you can expose that native module's objects to the Titanium framework in JavaScript and include it in your project. There's sort of a rough thing at the moment that the approximate, sort of difference in building an application between the two platforms, or between native and Titanium, is that most people who use it sort of get their apps out about 70% quicker than those who would have to code, for Java and then code Objective-C. So here's a sample of an application. Just to point out, all of this here, these tables on both the iPhone and Android, obviously, these are native tables, native rows. They will have native events. The tabs down the bottom, this is a native tab bar from iOS. This is a native tab bar from Android. They're not, they're not HTML. They're not CSS. They're not made to look like tabs. They actually are native tabs with all the native properties that we inherently, associate with an application that was built in the native language. There's about 5,000 mobile device and operating system APIs that Titanium currently exposes. So far, far more than most other cross-platform solutions. Everything from maps, and these are native maps. These aren't web view maps from Google or anyone else pumped into a web view container, native maps. Geolocation, file system storage, SQLite, Appcelerator, networking, everything from YQL and on. So there's a consistent API set with Titanium. Creating a view, for example, titanium.ui, create view. A view can be thought of in web terms as a kind of div. A window is a screen, a view is a div. And every other kind of native component that you'd have on both platforms as well, from image views, examples of creating buttons, sliders, switches, tables, rows, the entire box and dice. Just a quick note that Titanium and the TI namespace are interchangeable throughout the development language, so you can also shorten everything by going ti.media.createAudioPlayer. Titanium.media.createAudioPlayer would do exactly the same thing, which in that case would create an audio player that allowed you to stream MP3s down from a server. You can fire events globally throughout your application, so you can have an application that has 2 tabs, for example's sake. You can fire an event called myEvent on tab 1 in JavaScript and easily handle that event on another tab, tab 2. It uses callbacks for nearly everything. So this example here, all we're doing is showing the camera. In the code, this would basically launch the default camera application on either iOS or Android. And then callbacks mean that it's quite easy to tell when a success event comes back, and we can grab an image and put it into a view. It's really as simple as that. So that amount of code there is like this compared to the amount of native code you'd have to write in order to do the same job. Titanium's got full CommonJS support. So if you haven't heard of CommonJS before, it's just a set of specifications. It's not a platform, it's not something that's plugged in. It's simply a set of specifications that have been set for JavaScript outside of the web browser to standardize some of the problems that we have as JavaScript developers. So one of those standardizations is creating modules. So we use CommonJS modules so that we can, for example's sake, this is pretty simplistic, but I'm creating an alert called say hello. I put that into its own module, and then I can call that from anywhere within my application and include it without incurring memory penalties. So basically, if it's been required once in our application, and we require it again in another tab, or require it again somewhere down the line, there's no memory penalties from doing that. Okay, the Titanium Studio IDE. It's a free IDE tool. It's based on Eclipse. It has basically all the tools that you'd need to get started, to develop apps, autocomplete, testing, the whole box and dice. There's in-app debugging for iOS and Android that are coming in the next iteration of this. You can do simulator debugging. If you want to create an application and then run it in the simulator, create an application, and package it up. All of that can be done within Titanium Studio. Now, I realize quite a lot of people don't like Eclipse. Fair enough. You can use any other IDE you like. So you're not tied to Eclipse. If you want to code your apps in TextMate, if you want to code your apps in Notepad, Visual Studio for some reason, Sublime Text, anything you like, you don't need to stick with Studio. You can use the CLI tools, command line interface tools, to package your apps, test them, build them, debug them, without needing to bother about the Studio product. And from the next version of Titanium, which is released in the next couple of months, I believe, the command line interface will all be written in Node.js. So they have a real drive to make sure that their product from end to end is using JavaScript. So they'll have command line tools in Node.js, server-side tools with Node.js. All of the coding is done in JavaScript. They're concentrating purely on the JavaScript language. It's probably a good thing to point out is, while Titanium is a platform for building apps, it's not just a platform. That's not all it can do. It's an entire ecosystem. So there's analytics built in. It comes free with Titanium. There's an analytics set. You can also go and use other types of analytics modules. There's Google support for Google Analytics, Flurry, a few of the other ones. Appcelerator cloud services are built in. This is kind of like StackMob or Parse, if you've heard of either of those. So the cloud services mean that you can quickly get up and running with an app. You don't have to worry about building a backend database, building your own REST services. All that's built in with a click of a button. Modules. There's a module marketplace. There's over 300 of them available in at the moment. They're written in native Objective-C or native Java. Most of them usually work on both Android and iOS platforms. And they allow you to do things that the default platform may not do by straight out of the box. And community. There's a very, very big active community with Titanium. So Q&A forums, Twitter, any problems, there's lots and lots of developers out there using the tool set. Just a brief overview on the analytics. The built-in stuff allows you to track your users, your installations, and the application settings free for up to 30 days. That's from the release of once you get into production. You're not locked into using it. If you wish, you can use any number of other analytical modules, such as Flurry, Google Analytics. And recently, Appcelerator acquired a company called Notable, which is all about big data in the cloud. They're going to be offering an analytics product based on Notable in the near future. The cloud services. Automatic integration with Titanium Studio. Whenever you go and create a new application, you're automatically cloud enabled, basically. So you're given a development key and a production key, and you can start coding for the cloud platform, straight from the word go. It's got a large range of APIs, allows you to store files, media, images, whatever you like. It's all built on top of the Amazon platform and MongoDB, so it's all quite scalable. And it integrates other features as well, such as emailing, so you can set up an SMTP server through it, and push notifications. You can upload your push certificates from Android or push certificates for iOS and integrate push notifications without having to go and set up an entire separate service in order to do so. Just one other thing on ACS, actually. It's not just limited to Titanium. If you want, there's nothing stopping you from creating an ACS backend and storing all your data in that, using it with your mobile apps, and then going and writing a PHP website that integrates with that platform. So it's got APIs for iOS, Java, REST, and ActionScript. And of course, JavaScript outside of the Titanium API. Let's go through this quite quickly. These are some of the features that are available to you in the ACS platform. Some of these are quite interesting. Photos, for example, is quite good. If you upload a photo to the ACS platform, it will automatically go and generate thumbnails of a bunch of different sizes for you for your application, so you don't have to go and worry about doing that sort of image manipulation. There's even a developer release preview if you go to their website at the moment for Node ACS. So if you're big into Node, you can go and create your own Node services that integrate with your ACS account and your ACS objects, and use it to also sort of develop your own REST services with Node. The module marketplace, you can sign up for free. It's very much like the Google or iOS store. So you can build a module if that doesn't exist, or you can use ones that already exist, and you can go and sell those modules on the marketplace with a 70-30 split. Currently, there's 318 modules in the store, and there's one being added on average every 2 days. So it's the biggest marketplace for modules of its kind on the web. An active community. It's got a very active community, so developers, Q&A experts, all the rest of it. There's a really good forum online if you have any problems, if you don't know how to get started. Numerous meetup groups and conferences, numerous blogs, Twitter, social networking places that you can use. And there's official support and channels available as well. For Titanium, the future, everything, as I said, is going with JavaScript. So end-to-end using Node, Node on the desktop, Node in the server, and in the cloud. There's a game development engine being written for Titanium called Platino. The guy that wrote Corona is responsible for that, and that should be out sometime early next year. There's a new method for defining how you write applications called Alloy, which is very similar to XAML or those kind of XML-based layout languages. And there's some really great community tools at the moment. There's one called TI Shadow, which I'll point out. it allows you to basically simultaneously launch your Titanium app across a range of devices at the same time. So you plug them all in, an iPad, an iPhone, an Android device, it launches it, and you can test all three of them at the same time. An event, for example, a button, clicked on one of them, will fire across the entire lot. So the testing time frame is really, really reduced. And one last thing. If you're interested in learning more about Titanium, we're doing a sort of a community conference at the start of next year in Valencia for Europe. So there's not really a lot of conferences over here for us, so we've decided to put one together ourselves. Oh, well, we've disappeared. Any questions? Yes, you still need the iOS SDKs and the Android SDKs installed. So for iOS, for example's sake, you can't run that on Windows. So there's still those, inherent requirements, basically. But yeah, you still do need them. You can run Titanium on Android. You can run it on Windows. You can run it on Macs. You can run it on Linux. But obviously. I went to run that application and take some screenshots earlier today, but I couldn't get enough internet connection. So they were the screenshots. They just happened to be from one's from an earlier version of that application. Unfortunately, it's the same application. It's written in the same way. No. It's just simply that I went to run it earlier and take a couple of screenshots, and I couldn't run the Android version because the internet just kept dropping out on me, unfortunately. So, anyone else? Can you modify the application? Not really. But the JavaScript, when it's compiled down from Studio, is compiled down in base64 encoded and all the rest of it and encrypted. So it's secure basically. So not really. I mean, the whole system is open source. So there's nothing stopping you if you want from downloading the Titanium platform. Everything, the iOS part of it, the Android part of it, whatever you want, building your own extensions to it. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But the code that's generated from Studio or whatever other product is encoded and encrypted for that reason. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. If anyone wants I've got some little cards with the conference thing, the community conference thing. So if anyone's interested in grabbing a little card, just come up and I'll give you one. Cheers.